Ys 9 is just around the corner, and if you're unfamiliar with the series, there's a lot to catch up on. The Vita is the best console to catch up on the series, with 6 of the 9 mainline entries available to play, and the prequel Ys Origin all available to download from PSN and play on the Vita. I only became a fan of the Ys games a few years ago, but I've been so impressed at how good these games are, and as regular watchers know, I think Ys 8 is just superb, and the best game on the Vita. So here's a run through of the history of the Ys series and the Ys games available to play on your Vita. The Ys series is one of the oldest video game franchises in the world, with the first title being released in Japan in 1987. This was the same year of release of another notable gaming franchise, Final Fantasy. But unlike Square Enix, who went on to release dozens of titles under the Final Fantasy umbrella, there have only been 16 Ys games, and that includes several re-releases of past games. While the series has not hit the heights of popularity of Square's franchise, Ys has gone from strength to strength, and is, as at the time of this video, more popular now than it's ever been. The origin of the Ys series dates back to one of Japanese developer Nihon Falcom's earliest titles, Dragon Slayer, an action RPG that released in 1984. Prior to this, the company had dabbled in a number of genres, but Dragon Slayer received universal acclaim and put Falcom on the map. It was quickly spun off into a number of other franchises, namely the still popular turn-based Legend of Heroes series and the action RPG series Ys. The first entry, Ys 1, Ancient Ys Vanished, introduced the world to the red-headed adventurer Adol Christin, who has been the protagonist for all but one of the games in the series. All of the stories chronicle his adventures through a series of books, hence why he remains a mute protagonist, as the books are recounting the events and the words of people he met along the way. In an interview with Toshito Kondo, president of Nihon Falcom since 2007, Kondo states that Adol is a young adventurer, and even though in his profile it states that he later writes over 100 adventure journals, in-game he never speaks, and you can never tell what type of person he is. This is because we wanted Adol to portray the player within the world. He's a very mysterious character who never speaks, but fans still have their own interpretations of him. In that sense, he is a character that has been fostered and moulded by the players. For many years the series was released almost exclusively on PC, but that changed with the release of Sony's first handheld, the PSP. 4 Ys games were released on the system, 5 if you count Ys 1 and 2 as separate games despite being released in one package, and it marked a transition for the studio to supporting consoles as well as PC. The series was considered a success on the handheld, and given that it introduced Ys to a wider and younger audience, it's unsurprising that the studio was keen to support the Vita. Including the PSP games accessed via PSN, players are able to play the majority of the mainline series on the Vita, thanks to the remakes of the older games. Only the 5th and 6th entries are not available. However, this shouldn't put people off from playing the games, since each title is a separate tale of Adol's exploits. The games on Vita showcase the evolution of the series from top-down adventure to 3D action, and while the franchise has not quite found mass-market appeal, it has amassed a dedicated cult following which grew with the release of titles on the Vita. Ys 1 and 2 Chronicles. Originally planned to be a single game, but later split up and eventually released 1 year apart in 1987 and 1988 respectively, the plot of Ys 2 was a direct continuation of Ys 1. A young Adol found himself washed up on the shore of Asteria, an island that had been recently plagued by monsters and blocked off from the rest of the world by the storm wall. He decides to investigate the causes of the island's problems, and discovers the connection to the ancient civilization of Ys. The gameplay remains as unique today as it did back in the 1980s. Instead of having an attack button, Adol would attack enemies by running into them. Damage would be sustained by running directly into the front of enemies, so they must be approached from the sides or the back when attacking them. This approach to battling was called the bump system, which worked surprisingly well, partly because Adol's movement was so fast. Ys 1 and 2 were released in a combined package multiple times starting in 1989. However, the PSP version, released in 2009, contained the complete version, a remaster of the original titles with updated soundtrack and redrawn character portraits. Reviews of the PSP version were generally positive, with the primary criticism relating to the lack of clear direction or signposting of what to do next. Players today may find the bump system takes some getting used to, but the games have aged well, particularly from a story perspective. Ys, The Oath in Felghana. although the number was dropped from the title for this release. The Oath in Felghana is a remake of Ys 3. In the game, Adol travels with his friend Dogi to Dogi's hometown of Felghana, where the pair discover that an ancient evil is emerging and must be stopped. Ys 3 was originally a side-scrolling action game, but this remake was altered to be a top-down action RPG. One of the biggest changes from the first two games was the removal of the auto-attack system from Ys 1 and 2, and its replacement with a traditional attack button. But the title also added numerous platforming elements and a skill system that allowed interesting world traversal, as well as special attacks in combat. Reviews were overall favourable, with critics praising the enjoyable, fast-paced combat, the game's soundtrack, and how well it fit on the handheld. Ys 7. Set after the events of Ys 8, Ys 7 follows Adol and Dogi's adventure in the kingdom of Altargo, which, as usual, is plagued by monsters and another returning ancient evil force. The game follows the pair's journey through the area searching for the power necessary to prevent the destruction of the land, as they encounter numerous new playable characters along the way. Where previous title had Adol acquire multiple weapons, which he could swap in order to target weaknesses of foes, Ys 7 used a different mechanic, allowing Adol to travel with two companions, which the player could swap control between. The different characters had their own strengths and were more effective against certain enemy types, meaning experimentation was encouraged to figure out the most effective combinations. The graphics were significantly improved with large 3D polygonal character models and detailed environments, while the music was some of the best of the series. Another noteworthy change was the removal of the jump button. Adol and team could dash away from danger, but gone were the platforming sections in favour of a more pure action focused. Reviews were generally positive, and while critics found the plot wasn't overly special, the fast-paced action and shift to fully 3D gameplay more than made up for it. Ys Memories of Celceta. Another remake of a previous numbered entry, Memories of Celceta was an updated version of Ys 4, which had previously been released as two separate titles by completely different developers. Featuring improved graphics, a coherent story combining both the previous versions into one, and the gameplay system from Ys 7. It was released in 2012 in Japan, first on Vita, demonstrating yet again Falcon's appreciation of Sony's handhelds. It was later released worldwide on both PC and PS4. This title finds an amnesiac Adol being hired to map out the mysterious and dangerous forest of Celceta to piece together his memories. As with Ys 7, Adol is accompanied by other playable characters that have their own weapons and strengths against certain enemy types. The fast-paced gameplay was praised by critics as the strongest element of the game, and it was also less button mashy than previous Ys games, as players could trigger a flash guard or flash move by timing their guard or evade just before they take damage, giving them a temporary boost to strength or speed. It was well received, with some reviewers calling it one of the best games available on the Vita at the time of its release. It did, however, receive criticism for its plot, which was considered predictable, and its graphics, which had a soft blurred edge to characters, and was not on the level of other big-name Vita games released in 2013. Ys Origin. First released on the PC in 2006, with a re-release in 2017 on the Vita and PS4, Ys Origin was a prequel to the series, set 700 years before the events of the first game. After the land of Ys had become overrun by demons, the two goddesses Rhea and Fina raised part of the land to the sky to protect the people. In order to reach the people of Ys, the demons began erecting a massive stronghold, the Devil's Tower. One night, the goddesses mysteriously disappeared, and so a team of warriors are sent to the surface to search the Devil's Tower and return the goddesses to the floating city. Ys Origin introduces three new playable characters, Unica Tova, Hugo Fact, and the mysterious Claw. Players can work through the game's three storylines as each character makes their way up to the top of the tower, which was heavily featured in Ys 1 and 2, and tells the story from their individual perspectives, although it's worth noting that only Claw's story is considered canon. The Vita version was a remaster rather than a remake, so the graphics, style, and gameplay of the original release were unchanged. The controls and feel of the games were similar to that of Oath in Felghana, although this was no bad thing, particularly in terms of the fast-paced combat, which is as satisfying today as it was back in 2006. The graphics do, however, look dated by modern standards. The three characters offer some variety in the way they control, with Hugo specializing in range attacks and Unica and Claw utilizing melee attacks similar to how Adol plays. While fans of the series will be able to fully appreciate the references to other titles, it was considered an enjoyable standalone experience for newcomers and Ys veterans alike. The game was criticized for feeling repetitive, as the player would need to complete the game with each of the three characters to see the full canon story, and this involved playing through the same tower and environments for each playthrough. Despite this, Ys Origin remains a solid entry in the series and a great action RPG. Ys 8, The Lacrimosa of Dana. While Memories of Celceta was also developed as a native Vita game, Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana was a huge step up from the rest of the series in terms of graphics and polish, and played like a modern action RPG. The game begins with Adol and Dogi on a ship, the Lombardia. When the boat is attacked by a large sea monster, Adol wakes up on the mysterious island of Seren, where it's rumoured that no one that comes to the island ever leaves. From there, he embarks on an adventure to explore the island, reunite the survivors from the ship, and ultimately find a way off the island, while simultaneously having dreams of a mysterious blue-haired girl he's never met before, named Dana. The gameplay was similar to Memories of Celceta. You have a party of 3 characters and can freely swap between controlling any of them as they run, jump, dodge, guard, and battle the island's monsters. As with pretty much every other Ys game, the fluid gameplay and intuitive battle system was praised as the title's strongest element. Getting to grips with the controls was simple, and it didn't take long for players to become proficient at stringing together attacks and special moves while contending with the huge monsters that populated the island. As more of the ship's passengers were located, they returned to a base camp and can assist Adol by providing items, upgrades to weapons, and equipment. Each character's personality was fleshed out, and Adol could develop and improve his relationship with them by completing side quests. There was also a tower defense minigame that would periodically unlock, that had the player protect the camp from waves of enemies. All in all, there was a great deal of content available, including a fishing mode, and completing the side quests could add many hours of gameplay. Ys 8 was an impressive title on the Vita, but it wasn't without issues. The Japanese release in 2016 was marred with bugs and performance issues, although these were resolved by the time it launched worldwide a year later. The Western version did however suffer from translation issues that resulted in sometimes comically bad use of phrasing. The publisher, Nipponichi Software NIS, reworked the translation ahead of its PC and Switch release, and the patch was released for Vita and PS4 in February 2018. Most controversially, however, was that content was missing from the Vita version that appeared on other platforms. Ys 8 was developed first for Vita, and while the other versions did benefit from enhanced graphics and frame rate, they also benefited from the inclusion of new dungeons and additional story elements from Dana's past. Despite the drawbacks from the Vita version, it was still hugely enjoyable, and the missing content, while frustrating, didn't spoil the overall experience. The graphics quality was some of the best on the system, the action was satisfying, and the soundtrack perfectly suited Adol's island adventure. Ys 8 was to be the final title in the series released on Vita. The 9th mainline entry came out in 2019 in Japan, and will be released in 2021 for Switch and PS4 in the West. Thankfully, despite its initial niche appeal, the franchise has been growing. In an interview with DualShockers in 2017, Toshiro Kondo discussed the reason for the series' popularity. He said, "One reason would be Adol, a compelling and interesting main character. Also, the action is simple. I'm using simple in a positive meaning. The game is easy to pick up and play. I feel these contribute to the popularity of the series." Over its more than 30-year heritage, the titles have become incrementally better, and the Vita is the perfect system to see that progression and to experience this superb series of games. So guys, let me know, which Ys games have you played and which one is your favourite? And are you guys looking forward to Ys 9 as much as me? Leave a comment below, and as always, thanks for watching.